Welcome to hashtag WFH. I'm Samuel Burke. As COVID-19 has affected so many parts of the world, creative industries have had to quickly adapt to the changes brought about by the pandemic. With live shows and on-ground events put to a halt, artists have had to reach out to their audiences through the digital space. Singers like Grammy-winning artist Taylor Swift recently released her album Folklore, which she produced and recorded in secret while in quarantine, and treated fans to something quite different from the pop music that established her superstardom. Fans see the track Epiphany as a powerful tribute to frontline workers who are helping us fight the COVID-19 pandemic. And speaking of superstars, space agency NASA featured the work of Filipino singer-songwriter Reese Lantengan in their hashtag Launch America campaign. The artist shared how NASA reached out to her via Instagram direct message and asked her if she'd be interested in featuring her 2013 song, A Song About Space, and asked her if they could use it for a promotional video. It's all part of today's hashtag WFH. When COVID-19 hit the Philippines, musicians and creatives were greatly affected. And while the economy is slowly opening up, non-essential businesses continue to be extremely limited. Shows, gigs, and events are still not allowed in the current quarantine status. In the fight to stay afloat, many musicians have gone online to connect with their audiences. Barbie Almalbis is a singer-songwriter known for fronting the group Barbie's Cradle, but has made a name for herself as a solo artist. Despite this struggle, Barbie continues to stay hopeful and is one of the many Filipino artists who continue to keep the music industry alive, not just for herself, but for all the other musicians affected by this pandemic. Barbie, thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to go back a few months and really know what your first reaction was when the pandemic started to hit and lockdowns began to take effect.
Well, honestly, the first thing that I really thought about were the people that we worked with, like the crew and assistants, when we would have our gigs, because, they're like all of us, like we earn from gig to gig, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen next.
So when you started to realize that this was going to be a work from home situation, how did you have to adapt? What was your work from home music setup like? Was it already in place?
Yeah. When the pandemic started, my other thought was I didn't want it to slow me down. So I was hyper productive on the first. It's like I was like doing online gigs, like maybe the first 2 weeks, like almost every night I was online, like reaching out to people and playing. And then one day I couldn't get anything done. I was, hit by anxiety and then back again. So it's up and down for me.
Tell us more about the concert that you did from home. It's one thing doing an interview like this or doing a small gig, but you've hosted some pretty big virtual events from the confines of your home.
It was definitely like nothing that we've ever done before. There's something unique about online performances that I appreciate, because even if you don't have people, you can't hear them physically in front of you, but you actually now know what they're thinking. Because before, you're on a stage, they're right in front of you. I mean, they're there, they're clapping or dancing, whatever, but you don't really know what they're thinking. Are there any songs in particular they wanted to hear? But now it's everybody's on their keyboard, and while you're singing, while you're talking, you get all this feedback scrolling. So it's something that I appreciated. I didn't realize people like this song or like this song more, or it's given me a different insight. Yeah.
Barbie, I want to know, what do you foresee the next few months being like as we bounce in and out of lockdown and are starting to get back to somewhat normal pace of life? What do you see as normalcy for your industry?
I think people will continue to listen to music. People will continue to make music, right? It's been there since the beginning of time, I guess. It's never stopped. So I don't think a pandemic will kill the music industry or anything. People will continue to love making music and continue to love listening to music. I just hope that we'll be able to fix the economic side of it, the business side of it, so that we can go back to doing it for a living and making it work for not only the musicians but for everybody in the scene.
I just want to say, Barbie Almalbis, thank you so much for joining us and talking about what you're doing to help musicians all around the Philippines in this industry. Coming up next, we're going to be speaking to a content creator who's going to show us how she's been adapting during these times. But from here, Barbie, I'll let you just play us out.
Toot-dee-dee-doo, 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 do-do. Someone's knocking at that door, but I was so lazy for a political conversation.
Welcome back to #WFH. I'm Samuel Burke. As more people stay at home, video content has become a more essential part of our lives than ever before. But it's not just for entertainment. It can also be helpful tools in work and education. And it's content creators that can show us how we can meet this growing demand. Janina Vela is a YouTube content creator known for her beauty, lifestyle, and fashion content. She's also a singer-songwriter, which she balances with vlogging and school. Creating content that is relevant to the times is a challenge that Janina has taken up for herself, for her young audience to stay informed about the healthcare issues that have affected the world. And Janina, thanks so much for joining us on #WFH. I just want to go back in time a little bit and find out what your initial reaction was to the pandemic and how you thought it would affect all of the content that you create on these platforms.
I was honestly at first very relieved because first of all, we needed a lockdown. This virus was spreading radically, and I thought that it was in the country's best interest to have a lockdown. But I obviously didn't know that what I expected to be 2 weeks long would end up 6 months long.
And I think people are interested to know, what is your at-home setup like? We only see you on this side of the camera, but if you were to turn your camera around, what would we see beside those internet cables that you were just mentioning that we don't always see on this side?
Okay, see, the problem is now I am stuck with all of the wires and stuff. So
I see it.
There. So we have my office. It's over there. So there's a lot of wires on the floor.
It's looking less like a home and more like kind of a place for a photo shoot or a studio.
And then we have a ring light over there. We have another tripod. We have plants just for background options.
But you have a lot of lights. I mean, that's a lot of equipment.
Yeah, I take my job very seriously.
But there's one thing that really intrigues me about you, because you really focused a lot on the pandemic, where some people, of course, just mentioned it and moved on and continued with their usual topics. You really focused on this and looked at the health aspects. What did you have inside that really made you say, okay, this is something that I want to focus on with my audience and not just brush over it?
One of my New Year's resolutions for the past few years was to make tangible change. And so I had been focusing a lot more on ground relief efforts. And we were doing a lot of those on ground. And obviously I'm not allowed to do that anymore. So I had to find a way. That's why, coming up with a series that it's called Trendsetter, where I get to merge pop culture and politics in one video and in one conversation was very important to me, because both are important. Any action we make today will affect people in the future, will affect our future generations. And so we have to have a say on those things.
Janina, I think a lot of people would like to know what type of content you like consuming. You're the content creator usually, but of course, anybody who's in this business is a voracious consumer of what they're seeing as well. So what really gets you going?
That's a very interesting question. I've never been asked that, honestly. People just look at me as a creator. I appreciate that. Thank you. You care. I like watching makeup, funny enough. I like watching makeup videos. Yes, I am normal, no matter how my YouTube videos may look like. I look very, serious and intelligent all the time. I like watching makeup and regular lifestyle vlogs as well. I think things that just make me feel peace is something that I always reach to.
I want to know what your top 3 tips are. This is a big part of hashtag WFH for content creators or people just looking to get into this space. What are the top 3 things after all the work that you've done in this space that you would advise to people just moving into this sphere?
First is know that you can turn off your social media. I think sometimes, when the bashing comes, we think that social media controls us. But the truth is we control social media. So I think taking care of yourself is very important. Number 2 is staying grounded in reality. I think it's also very important that we understand just the weight of our platform and how we can change mindsets, how we can change lives, how we can add value to people and then to their lives. Hopefully, using it to help people stay informed and educated and inspired and empowered is very important, while staying grounded in the reality of our country. And lastly would be, I guess connected to the number 2, is to remember your purpose. That also includes content creators. I hope that we'll be passionate about some purpose, some advocacy, and we'd be willing to fight for that in our personal lives, but as well as on our platforms. Living a purposeful life and creating purposeful content is very important.
Well, Janina Vela, it's been so interesting hearing how you're combining your love for content creation, politics, self-betterment, all into one sphere, which is, of course, all at home right now, just like the rest of us. So good luck to you, and we're wishing you and your family continued health and safety. Well, what we've really seen today is that people like Janina and Barbie are using their platforms, creating content to help lift up their audiences. Keep in mind that working from home is, of course, a privilege that not everybody has. But we see how these creators and artists are trying to bring people together and be the glue of our society in this virtual world. So if you have the privilege of working from home, think about how you can include people out there who might be consuming your words or videos on their devices, and think about how we can try and create a more inclusive space as we all work together to get back to some form of normalcy. That's it for this edition of hashtag WFH. For our entire team, we want to wish you continued health and safety, and we'll see you right back here on our next edition.